Hey, hello. So it took me a little while today to get myself to make the next video. It was raining the last few days and it's somewhat cold. At first I was like wanting to do the recording inside, but then you know how it is. Sometimes we want to do something, but it's kind of like hard to get myself into the position of doing something. And I think especially this is true when I make a commitment to myself that I want to do something regularly. And I don't even want to say I struggle with it. I think we make commitments and then we say we struggle with commitments, with the regularity of things. But I think the true thing, what we really struggle with, is that we need to create commitments because I want to like push something forward that really needs a lot more time to develop. And often it's something that I want to push forward that's actually just very ego driven. But the natural unfoldment of things has its own speed, has its own path that often has very little to do with what my brain thinks what should happen, and therefore I commit to certain things that my brain thinks it should be doing. And today I want to talk about something that goes really well along with this topic, I think, and that's sensitivity. And I think especially I want to direct this one towards men. I'm a man, and I think these days we are in a little bit of a divide socially between like sensitive men and super like, I don't even know what the other side is, because I don't think there's insensitive men, but I think there's some that are more connected with their feelings and some that are trying to put the feelings aside and stay on track and stay focused all the time and have their commitments and routines. And I would say like a stoic man maybe. And I just talked to a man who I work with, someone I mentor, and it reminded me of a pattern that I see that comes up for men in relationship. And so here's how this pattern goes a little bit. In relationships, there is sort of like the woman who is complaining that she doesn't get enough connection with the man, that he's not intimately connected with her, or that he doesn't have his attention on her. And I hear from a lot of men who come to me or come to seek out help, that they say, I don't want to do this. And I ask, like, what is it that you think you are supposed to be doing? Well, like, I'm already like, it feels like a chore and feels like a lot of work. And I'm already like trying to like, I took her out for her birthday, and I take her for dinner, and I took her to the movies, and I did activities with her. And I think a lot of men think that connection and intimacy has to do with some activity or some grand gesture or presence or remembering her birthday or what she loves to eat and then presenting it on a platter. But really what the thing is it's about it's about this. When I come, or when I'm sitting in the living room and she's there too, am I like a stone Or am I like a stone, right? Am I like a wall, an impenetrable wall? And I noticed this with a lot of men, and I often ask, like, are you like this with your best buddy? Like when you hang out with your friends, or particularly the ones that you really like and that you really have a good time with. And I always get the answer, no, I'm not like that with them. Like, no, like you laugh, right? Like you laugh, you have fun, you share yourself. Not all men have that kind of friendships, but I would say it goes more in that direction. And so that's the thing that she's actually asking for. It's like the complaint that that I'm not connectable. It's more that like she's dealing with this wall that is up, and I'm not emotionally here. I'm not penetrable. I'm not open. And so then what happens is she starts to complain about that. She starts to come at you and like, oh, why are you not like this? And why can you not connect? Why don't we have intimacy and all of that kind of stuff? And she's not talking about sex in that moment. That's also where they shut down. And so they come and complain about all of this. And often this really builds up, and really couples spend long time in this like state of like the man has a wall up and she's complaining. And here's the thing, it's a bit of a chicken and an egg problem, because the more she complains, the more she's like meh, 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 like that, and maybe even attacking him for that, the more that wall will actually go up. Because here's the thing, here's the thing about this, here's the truth about this. Men are super sensitive, highly sensitive, and we're especially sensitive to conflict, to being scolded, to being complained at, and we are the reason for the complaint. At least it's how men pick it up. And the more someone scolds and nags at us, the more we close. So it's really actually a thing that like, and then that closure feels to the woman like we are not connectable. So it's a chicken and egg situation. Who started it? I don't know. But what we do is we come up with a solution to it. And that solution is not necessarily a good one, but I will share what I see, because you'll see that the solution is actually perpetuating the problem. This solution is one could be like, oh, one is the solution is like craving. It builds craving. It builds a craving for like weed or alcohol, which is like becomes a safe place. It becomes a thing that like, this is mine. I hear that so many men say this. It's like, this is the last thing that I have. This is the last place where I get to be myself and where I get to be with myself. And this is mine, right? Maybe like listening to music and having a joint or something like that. And it's like, the thing what it is when you're really honest with yourself, it's a safe place. It's a place where I get to be in my feelings, and no one pokes at it. No one is like, why are you not this or that? And another thing that we do is we think that we need to please the woman, because she says, we have this misconception that like she wants expensive dates and stuff and all that things to appease her, feeling like that there's a lack of connection or there's a lack of intimacy, which ultimately for her, if a woman is deprived of those things, she will develop a bunch of symptoms. Like she will basically feel lonely, she will feel not appreciated, she will feel unloved, right? So like it makes sense that we develop an idea that like if we give her something like some jewelry or something nice or a weekend away, that's gonna infuse like some grand feelings into her where she feels like, wow, yeah, okay, he does love me. But it's just so momentary. But we have that idea, we think like, okay, let me like create a grand gesture, and for that I need to have money. So like we go and the solution becomes working really hard. So we have more money, and success is as a great way of like a great solution. But really what happens is we isolate even further into those subjects like work and drugs and maybe pornography and masturbation or whatever it is, like any kind of things where like we go to create either safety for ourselves, something where we can be with our feelings, where we are comforted in our feelings, or where we can create some kind of hope for the future that if I get to the goal of this thing, then she will finally be like I will finally be enough for her. But really at the root of this is this safety that we're looking for and the approval that we're looking for in those things are what we need to feel safe. What we need to feel safe to be what? Sensitive. Because here's the thing, we love to fight this stupid fight of like running away and she scolds us and complains and nags. We love that fight because it's actually easier to be in that fight, to be in that argument where we like big outburst and then like disconnection. It's much easier to do that than to actually sit with each other and open up and be in that kind of like place where you get curious with each other, where you open up with each other, and you kind of like know that, and here's just a little bit of a devastating like reality, like all the stuff I've accumulated at work or is basically useless. Like for a woman who actually already feels appreciated, who is rooted in her own love, these things are pretty meaningless. And we know that also. We also know that those are meaningless. I know that, at least. I don't know, like some might not be aware of it. Or the same with like drugs or alcohol. We somewhat deep down, we know that no matter how much time we spend in the safe haven of these substances, it doesn't really do anything. Like we know that like it's just ticks, the time ticks, and then we come out of it again and we are in the same old. So these things are really meaningless, and when you realize that, that's kind of really devastating, because it brings me back to a place where like, fuck, my life, if I have spent a lot of time working my ass off or hazing the heck out of my brain with substances, I know that basically my life has been really meaningless. My life is meaningless in the time that I've spent doing those things. And one has to return to the truth that there's really no achievement. I haven't achieved anything with doing that. And then I'm left with my old feelings, really old feelings, like feelings that I had the first time when I was a teenager, when I realized that like I don't have anything to offer to a woman that makes her mine, that makes her safe or secure. But from that place is where we are incredibly sensitive. Like men have such a need to be, to have a safe environment in a relationship, just as much as women do. And I think culturally we have this understanding right now that women are the ones who need to be held. And that's true. Women need to be held. Women need to be held in safe communication. There needs to be a place where a woman can safely be, but at the same time also a man. So I really to even make the distinction whether who needs to be in a safe space is actually has nothing to do with gender. It's basically just the human being needs to be safe in order to be able to be connected at all. And I think that gets really vastly overlooked. I think often it's there's an emphasis on women needing to be safe and men needing to provide that for them. And I see a lot of that out there where the men are trying to create a safe container, often again through some physical, material things, when really it has very little to do with that. But it has much more to do with, am I receptive? Do I see her? Am I able to sit and listen, especially to the things that a woman will bring up to me where there is work that needs to happen? Because women do point out to a lot of men, to all men, that there is certain things that we haven't looked at. We also have that ability to bring that to the women, and we also do. But most of the time, both sides meet that with defensiveness or with justification. And the moment that happens, the wall goes up. And the moment the wall goes up, the volume gets cranked up. And we are in that reactivity again. And we are living in that reactivity. We're literally living in that reactivity all the time. And that's what basically I would say is the core foundational issue with most relationships and marriages that lead them to eventually feeling like there is no real bonding here. And so this is I think men have so much energy to be creating things, to create spaces, to create the world, to do all those difficult jobs that women don't often do. Let's speak that in the stereotypical sense, obviously, because there are some women who do these jobs too. But I think that comes after we have a settled nervous system that feels somewhat connected. And most of the time we are trapped in cycles of, we have some good time, we have a good period, and then we hit the conflict again. Someone says this is not enough, this is not good, has a problem with it, and the thing starts to go again and disconnects. Because ultimately, and you might have some time, I see this lately, now we just come out of the time of Christmas and New Year, and some of my clients are oh, I'm doing fine right now. I'm like, yeah, great, because you had some time, maybe at home. You get to relax, you get to calm down, and in those times we often end a lot of these arguments and we come to somewhat like a completion. But ultimately it's a revolving door. It's a revolving door, and eventually like we'll just hit that next thing. And we shut down, we close again. And I know that like a lot of the issues out there right now around the male sexuality, and I am particularly even want to mention right now the things around transgenderism and those kind of things, which I think rarely do we talk about in these transgenderism issues. Rarely do we talk about the issues of women wanting to be men. I think most of the time it's the issues of men trying to cross over to be women. And I see like the biggest wave of hate and conflict in that topic when it comes to that. And especially there's some real hard ass men who, even though they might have some points, not talking about right or wrong, but that have a real issue with the sexuality of another human being. Now we can project that into whether that's about something that affects other people because they need to give them the right pronouns or not, which is really like whatever. But to me, what I see in this topic is that if man had, all that stuff is an outcry of men being deprived for a really long time from a safe space, to have a safe space to express at home their feelings, and eventually that suppression of not having that space, and instead working harder and harder and harder to overcome those complex feelings, one alienates from those feelings and one demonizes those feelings and says these feelings are bad, they are gay, they are weak, they are destructive. And it's true, they are destructive because they suppress, so they have created a boatload of energy. They are weak because they literally, if you would drop into them, you would not get done anything because you would be so overwhelmed. So it creates an absolute pit that is absorbing one. And they are gay. Yes, they are gay because there is a internal deep hope that maybe if I have tried it with women for long enough and it's hopeless and it's painful, maybe my inner craving, my inner emptiness to be fulfilled gets met with another man. Maybe another man will hear it. Maybe if I change myself to the exterior of a woman, that might do something to feel closer to the woman. And to me, these are all, I see an extreme in those the extreme in those are an outcry for this incredible sensitivity and this incredible lack of space for that sensitivity to be. And that's really the core aspect of it. It needs a space to be, not just a therapist that one sees once a week, and once a week this has a place to come out, but it needs a man needs to be safe when he comes home to express his feelings, his thoughts, his fears. And I'm not talking about the woman needs to accompany all of it or needs to please him in those things. She doesn't need to dress up or do some wicked sexual stuff with him. But what I'm talking about is that right now, if most men would come home and would say, I feel like I want to run away. I feel like I hate my wife right now. Not because it's the truth, but because it's a strangled soul that has thoughts that have perverted to the most extreme expression that he basically, most men these days that I see struggling want to run away from their families, want to rather live on the streets or go somewhere into the woods and build some outdoor shacks and just be free of the burden, the trouble that they are holding. And there is a way in which this has to be regarded as a conflict that we haven't understood yet. And the voices that are coming out of the man need to find a way to be able to just be put on the table without that leading to an argument. And the same, the female voice of saying, I don't feel you anymore, I don't know where you are a stone, what happened to you, also need to come out on the table. And those voices need to be together. They need to have the permission to lay there and be like, so what are we doing with that? Let's look at this. Why is it the way it is? Without immediately jumping to conclusions, without immediately wanting to run away and get a divorce and like all that kind of stuff, without the attempt to solve it, because the reactive mind cannot solve it because it's part of this, and any reaction to it will just further the problem, because it will lead to the fear that, again, it's not safe to just merely express these things. And I hear my wife in the back of my head right now saying, well, I shouldn't be your therapist. And I think there's a fear all around that we go too deep with each other, that we don't know what to do with these existential expressions, that she wouldn't know how to be my therapist, and she doesn't need to. But at the same time, it's, on the one hand, it's her fear to not wanting to be my therapist, because she thinks it leads us into a dark corner. And at the same time, that expression obviously leads me to feel like I can't express my feelings because, oh God, what happens if she has to carry me? Or what happens if she thinks she's my therapist? She doesn't want that, right? I need to protect her from that. But it's kind of the truth, I think, is we have some really, really dark corners right now in our relationships. Everybody does. We live in some really fucking dark times. This is actually connected to the entire rest of humanity. But I think we will only heal our relationships if we are able to bring these things out and talk about them. And this will for sure lead to some form of transformation in the couple, which right now we are trying to do that isolated, one for themselves. Me in my therapy, you in your therapy, and our sexual stuff. If we really can't come together, we take it out into polyamory. We just look for it elsewhere. But I think we're constantly trying to maneuver around these dark holes, and we try to like make a nice attitude about everything, put a face on like that really doesn't bring us anywhere. But my urge is to be like, can we put this out, express these things, listen and hear, not just listen, but hearing each other without an attempt to do anything about it, but just so we're starting to establish, to feel like we can express with each other. And once that happens, there's a feeling of connection that comes about. There's a feeling of you and I, we relate. And there's a feeling where the walls go down and there is a softer man and a softer woman that reveal by themselves. And when they are revealed, a lot of the sexual problems between the couple fades away. Because our sexuality is one of the most tender things that we have, which we guard. And when there's reactivity in a relationship, the sexual self cannot actually be connected because it's loving. It wants to be loving the other person from a very soft place. Now that soft place is the thing that we have the wall around. And there's this interesting thing where I think it was like on Joe Rogan or something. I don't watch Joe Rogan podcasts, but I see memes and snippets. I mean, they're everywhere. Where it says that transgenderism and gay and queer community has always been the last thing to rise before a society collapses. And like as if it was a sign of a downfall. This is how it's being put, this is what makes them fall down, because they lose all moral compass. And I think that's not the case. I think the reason why at the end of those societies there is the LGBTQ and the queer and the trans and all that coming out is because it is an outcry to step out of this problem where we are highly intensified in solving our problems through a materialistic approach, through the constant growth of everything, the constant growing of my personal manhood, what I own, what I have, what power do I have. This growth leads us to a inner deprecation, which then creates the urge for sexuality to extremify itself. I'm not saying that being gay, queer, trans is a wrong thing or is an extreme thing. I'm not saying that. I think they are actually very inherent in a much more subtle form. I think the rise of these are a voice from inside propelling these things to the forefront, because they actually have the power to remind us of something that is very important, and that if we don't get that right will lead us eventually to our destruction. Because the capitalistic, materialistic, I don't even care about capitalism. This is not a video against capitalism or something like this. But on a personal level, this making myself strong and stoic and pushing aside our feelings inevitably leads to isolation and inner warfare, inner conflict, and therefore obviously also outer warfare and outer conflict. That's it. That's the entire thing. So it starts with me, it starts with you, it starts with our relationships. That's where our safety, our sense of security sits. If we don't feel safe at home, we won't feel safe anywhere else either. And if we run around with that sense of not feeling safe, then the man really doesn't do any good in the world. And I think that's what we see everywhere. We're not doing very good stuff right now. We're doing selfish stuff. We're doing fearful stuff. We're doing stuff that terrified people do. And it's very sad. And I really feel that it is very important. It's something that I think I want to really, really deeply work on this year, is to understand, not to be soft, but to understand the places where I have become hard, where I have become protected. And yeah, I think the understanding is important. To understand it, that's what I'm saying, to put it out on the table together, without fixing, without a solution, without trying to change it. Because I can sit here and I say, like, I don't want to be hard, let me be soft. And that's not what this is about. It's like, then it's not changed at the root, but it's just changed superficially. I'm just putting a nice face on it. I'm making it about a nice or kind communication, or loving kindness, and putting light on top of everything, which really this isn't about. This is actually about looking at some of the stuff that's really dark. And when I do that, you start to bring it into the light. You start to integrate it. You start to understand the truth about our relationships, how we are overcommitted, how we have made promises that are really not something that we can promise, and how we have expectations that we can't hold, and beliefs that have no grasp in reality. It's a big topic, and I really think that sensitivity is a highly, highly underestimated superpower. That when one is in touch with sensitivity, one has real access to magic with other people, to like really make a difference in other people's lives and unlock doors that have been jammed for a long time. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you take something from this, and see you next time.